everyone. Thank you for joining us for EarthEcho's STEMExplore Virtual Career Connection featuring Rose Hedges from UnityPoint Health, St. Luke's Hospital in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. My name is Casey. I am a programs manager here at EarthEcho International, and we are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn about exciting and sustainable careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. This live event is part of STEMExplore, EarthEcho's program that brings inspiration to life by telling the stories of dynamic female professionals in STEM careers during live virtual career connections. Now, we would like to thank our founding sponsor, United Technologies, for their support of this programming and for their support of women in STEM. Here at EarthEcho International, we believe that youth have the power to change the planet. Visit www.earthecho.org to learn more about our programs. You can also access resources like STEMExplore's career profile videos, as well as tune in for upcoming live events just like this one. I'd like to recognize and thank EarthEcho's STEMExplore after-school partner sites across the country, and I especially want to get a hello from those that are joining us live today. So first, let's get a hello from the students in West Palm Beach, Florida at CommonPort. CommonPort, hello, how are you today? Great to see everybody at CommonPort. All right, let's head across town in West Palm, Florida to Berkshire Elementary. Hello, Berkshire. Hi. Wonderful to see you all. And last but not least, let's head up north to our friends in Cedar Rapids, Iowa at Vernon Middle School. Hello, Vernon. Hey, wonderful to see everyone. We're so excited that everyone out there can join us live. And of course, we are streaming live to YouTube and to our website. So just a reminder that if you are on our live streams, you can also interact and send in questions for our STEM expert. Just use that chat space on YouTube or in this Zoom connection, and we will break a few times during today's program to answer your questions. So you can start typing those questions at any time, and we'll be sure to answer those as we go along. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to welcome our special guest for EarthEcho's STEMExplore Virtual Career Connection, Rose Hedges. Hello, Rose.
Hey, guys.
How you doing today?
Awesome. It's a great day.
Yay! I'm so excited to have you back with us for STEMExplore. So Rose Hedges began nursing on an inpatient surgical unit and then transitioned to a cardiac intensive care unit where she discovered her determination to find solutions to optimize patient outcomes. Her current role is in Informatics at UnityPoint Health, St. Luke's Hospital in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. There, she utilizes her clinical expertise, computer technology, and information science to support innovation and change throughout the hospital. Rose is also the Maker Nurse Champion at St. Luke's Hospital, where she strives to empower nurses to share solutions they have created to identify problems in healthcare. Rose's passion for health making and prototyping at the point of care continues to influence her daily work. Now, Rose, let's hear it from you. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining today. Before we get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about where I work at. I work for UnityPoint Health, which is a large health system, but I work specifically at the hospital, St. Luke's Hospital in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So we have about 532 beds. We have about 50,000 emergency room visits each year. Almost 2,500 babies are born at our hospital every year. So that gives you kind of an idea about the size of our hospital. And we also really pride ourselves in some of the recognition that we're able to gain. We're a magnet recognized facility, which means that we really have a great environment for our staff as well as nurses. And we also hit Best Hospital, US News and World Report quite frequently.
Excellent. So let's dive in a little bit about Maker Health.
Yeah, so Maker Health, what is Maker Health and what does it mean when you say that you're a Maker Nurse, Rose? So what that means is that Maker Health is a company, it's kind of a sub-company of MIT in Boston. And what they do there is they recognize that nurses and other healthcare professionals create solutions all the time to problems that they have. So that could be, I'm working at the bedside and I use a tongue depressor and I tape it to the side of the bed and loop my IV cords up and over the side of that because that's how I keep them out of the way. We're kind of MacGyvers or tinkerers or hackers, if you will. We do that kind of stuff all the time. So Maker Health is really a platform that helps nurses and other healthcare professionals bring those ideas to life. So my relationship with them has been going on for about 2 years, and we have been doing this program for, like I said, 2 years. And with that, we are just getting ready to do some very exciting things here in Cedar Rapids, but it's kind of started as a roving clinic, if you will. So we had pop-up labs. And what a pop-up lab is we would hold say in a conference room, kind of like where I'm at today, we would have Legos and tape and straws and IV tubing and you name it, all sorts of things. And we would ask nurses and other healthcare staff, what are your challenges? What problems do you have? And we would prototype right there on the spot. We would fix the problems, we would make a first draft, and then we'd bring their creations to life. So over the course of the last couple of years, we've had some really great projects come out of that.
So Rose, to talk a little bit about how nurses are makers, I think we have a few images from the days of yore. That if you want to kind of lead into those really cool stories, we can start by looking at some of the prototypes of yesteryear.
Yeah, prototypes of yesteryear for sure. So some of the history of nursing is that like I said, we've always been nurse makers. So these are images from old nursing journals, specifically the American Journal of Nursing. And they used to publish a column, and that title of the column changed over the years, but around the 1950s, they used to call this column the Trading Post. And nurses would write in and share their secrets of how they were fixing solutions. So if you see the images here, you see the nurse with this emergency evacuation baby apron that somebody drafted as, that's how we're going to get the babies out of the hospital if there's a fire or something like that. There in the bottom right corner is a pink bandage around a child's face. And we actually use some modification of that today still. It's the kind of ice pack that we would use if a child had their tonsils out or maybe their wisdom teeth removed. And also you see up there the little woman with her umbrella on her head. Well, nursing didn't always happen in the hospital. A lot of times it happened at home. So they were writing in and sharing how they created kind of a humidification tent for patients with lung problems. Here again, some more examples out of the American Journal of Nursing. You see up there in the upper right-hand corner, that's the Dannenberg mask that was actually created by a nurse, and that was a mask that we used to help decrease the spread of influenza. As we know, it's something that's passed respiratory-wise, and so we drafted a mask to try and protect ourselves and decrease that spread. As well as in the middle, you see that teddy bear, and that teddy bear has a tracheostomy or a tube in their throat, and that's what they're using to help teach their pediatric patients or the young kids about caring for their trachea and how they can improve care. So Maker Health's mantra is really that, nurses are faster than any medical device company and closer to the patient than any engineer ever will be. So to break that down a little bit, nurses are with the patients all day, right? And we are probably going to have an idea of what works and what doesn't work. So you'll see a lot of medical device companies that are, hey, here's my new product. And they'll bring it to the unit and the nurses will be like, well, why didn't you? Oh, well, they just didn't think of that. So they have a little bit of an insight that maybe the engineers don't have. So to share some of our current work, this project is really exciting for me, but over the last 2 years, I said, we've been working on the front lines with nurses. This is Christina. She's one of our wound therapy nurses. And what her problem was that she's identified is that this device you see here with her is a wound vac, and that wound vac keeps the bed of a wound dry. And if it starts to become soggy or the seal is broken, the alarm goes off for the wound vac. And sometimes if you have a patient who maybe doesn't know to call on their call light or can't because maybe they're in a coma, things like that, we don't always hear that alarm, but we have a short window of time to be able to react to that alarm to address the problem and fix it. So we worked with the Maker Health team and we coded a little device that you can see there in our first prototype there, our clear box. This device hears the alarm sound from the wound vac and then sends a text message to the charge nurse phone. So we can say, oh, we got to get down there and get it get to that alarm. So that's been a really fun project. You know, we're still kind of reiterating on it. This is Crystal, and she's one of our operating room nurses. And as you see here, when I say prototyping, we start with things like PlayDoh, things that everybody knows about. So down in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see she has a vial. And one of the problems we identified here is that when you're preparing for a sterile procedure, sometimes the nurse will not be sterile, but the provider or physician will be. So I would hold up a vial like this, and he would take his sterile needle and come into my vial and get the solution on the inside because we have to stay sterile. But he's coming at me with a big needle into this little vial that you would see down here in the corner. So we wanted to create something to kind of be a safety for those nurses. So we started with PlayDoh, and then we went to a material called Instamorph. And Instamorph looks like plastic pellets that when you get hot, it turns into almost like silly putty. But when it dries, it looks like something up there in the upper left-hand corner. So it's a hard plastic. And then we moved to 3D printing. So we were learning some CAD skills, learning how to frame it out the way we needed to. And then you can see there on the right that we were able to 3D print that. This is another fun project. So this here you see some silicone molding. So with this specific example, we were using virtual reality as a way to combat pain in chronic pain patients. So we all know, or we've probably heard, that there's a problem with lots of drugs being given to treat pain. So one thing we were doing at the hospital is to try and explore alternative methods. And in that exploration, we wanted to try virtual reality. Well, down in the bottom left corner, you'll see that that's one of our physicians, Dr. Tallman. He's got the headset on. And the piece that is between his face and the actual hard plastic of the VR mask is foam. And in the hospital, that's actually a problem because foam you can't clean really well. How do we wipe that down or send it through the laundry? We got to be able to clean it between the patients. So they came to me with this problem, and what we did is we reached out to Maker Health and kind of bounced some ideas around, and we came up with a plan to pour our own, and let's make it out of silicone. So we were able to scan the foam mask we had, made a reverse mold of that. You see Wencia here pouring some silicone, and there in the center, that black piece is actually that interchangeable piece, but it's made out of silicone. So we could move forward with our project because now we can clean all of the equipment we have to be able to treat patients' pain.
I think this one's my favorite.
This one is a great one. So this one was, Anna was a young patient of ours, and we, of course, have all of our consents signed to be able to share her story. She loves to help others. So we identified that Anna really wanted to be independent, but unfortunately she was in a bad car accident on prom night, and she was no longer had the ability to have fine motor skills. So gross motor skills, or things like I can move my arm up and down like this, but fine would be my fingers. I can't do things with my fingers. So she was a big makeup junkie, and she wanted to be able to, I want to put on mascara. I want to be able to put on my blush, but I can't grip things. So working with Anna, we were able to, in the middle there, you're able to see we made a 3D printed clip that actually has a magnet in it. And then we prototype. So first draft, doesn't matter what it looks like. Let's get proof of concept underway. So we used a bolt, and that material is called Sugru, that starts out like a silly putty, but dries as a silicone. So we got a mascara wand there. And guess what? Now Anna can put on her own mascara because we were able to use Velcro and a little 3D printing and some Sugru that now she can move the mascara wand up and down to her face. So making good headway on that as well.
That's great. And you know, Rose, this brings up a really good point of the medical industry. There's obviously things need to be sterile. Things need to be clean, so we're not introducing any foreign bodies into these patients. And so there's a lot of plastic use, of course, but then there's also a lot of one-time use. And so a lot of these innovations helps to kind of work towards a sustainable future and kind of eliminating those one-time use. So I know with this story in particular, she'll have this product for the rest of her life, right?
Yeah. And the thing that's really great about this is that we can just continually make interchangeable pieces. So if she wants to use a hairbrush or adapt her contacts somehow, you know, we can make those pieces because it's just something we can continually add to. So yeah, it's very sustainable in the fact that we're not constantly throwing away plastic.
Absolutely. And just to back up a slide, the mask, that foam piece that you mentioned that you would have to sterilize in between each and every use, you making, it was silicone that it ended up being,
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
So you making it silicone, and then that way you can sterilize that. And again, it's not a one-time use. You're using that same product over and over. Now,
Yes.
I understand you have some pretty big news, some pretty big
Oh
stuff
my
happening at
goodness.
the hospital tomorrow.
Yes, absolutely. The biggest news ever. So we are actually opening an innovation lab at the hospital tomorrow. So it's finally here. What that means is we are having a physical space inside of the hospital where staff can come and work on these projects all the time. It's no longer me and my roving cart to be able to, hey, let's work on our CAD skills to be able to 3D print this. You know, we'll have 3D printers and laser cutters and a smart health section where we can code things and devices. So it's very exciting. It's the third one of its kind in the United States. And we're really excited to be able to take this step forward.
That's awesome. Now, Rose, you've shared some really cool, innovative work that you're doing. Before we get to our round of questions, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about kind of your educational path that you took to get to where you are today.
Yeah, it was a little bit different, I suppose. Here's my timeline. I know you all can see what I see. So my timeline, you see there was a little bit of a gap year there, and I kind of went back and forth a little bit. So maybe not the most traditional path, but I got to where I am today, and I'm still proud of my path. So in 2003, I went to Mount Mercy College at the time. It wasn't even a university at the time. And I started their nursing program. And you know what? It was a lot of hard work. And I didn't make it through a couple classes. And so I took a year break and went to one of our community college there in 2004. You see, I went to Kirkwood. During that time, I sat on the waiting list trying to get into their nursing program. So I got my emergency medical technician degree or certification. And then I decided I really wanted to get my bachelor's degree. So I jumped ship and went back over to Mount Mercy at the time and graduated with 2010 with my bachelor's degree. And after that, started working as a nurse. It was awesome. I love working as a nurse. Being a nurse is very rewarding, but I also really like school. I'm special in that way. I love to be able to learn new things every day. So I went back to Mount Mercy University at the time and got my master's in nursing and continued to work as a nurse, jumped into informatics a little bit, and we'll learn more about that here in a little bit. And then worked in that field, still in nursing, and decided that I wasn't done with school. So I went back to Clark University in Dubuque, Iowa, and got my doctorate.
Awesome. So if a student would want to venture into this type of realm of work, what are some realities of it? For example, what would a paycheck look like?
Oh yeah. So I think that it's a little bit different for just across all of the United States, but right around median salary, depending on where you're at, you can see here on the graph. It's anywhere from $50,000 to $85,000 for a registered nurse across the nation. And you know, that kind of changes every day. And it definitely depends on the field of nursing too that you go into. That's one thing that's a little bit diverse about nursing, that I could be an operating room nurse, or I could be an anesthesia nurse, or I could be a home health nurse, or informatics, or research. You know, there's many different areas. So I think that that's kind of where you get your variability, but it's a pretty sustainable job as well. I don't think nursing's going anywhere anytime soon.
That is a true statement. All right, well, that lays some really good groundwork for, I hope, some really good questions. So we're going to head to all of our partner sites that we have live on video, and we're also going to check our chat space as well. So I know we have a group of high school students tuning in from Ohio. If you do have a question for Rose, use that chat space and we'll be sure to answer your questions. But right now, why don't we take our first stop at CommonPort in West Palm Beach, Florida. CommonPort, what questions do you have for Rose? Hang on one second, CommonPort. All right, do we have one question?
Miss Lynn.
All right, CommonPort, we'll come back to you in just a second. Why don't we head to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to Vernon Middle School? What questions do you have for Rose?
Any questions? Unmute myself.
She's right there in your hometown.
Right. And we get to see her in December. So with that in
You
mind.
can see the lab.
Yes,
Yep.
you guys actually get to go visit the lab.
Any questions?
I want to be a nurse.
Shelby says she wants to be a nurse.
Excellent.
No questions?
Awesome.
Okay, we'll let you know. We'll use the chat space.
Okay, sounds good. Well then, with that said, let's hop on back down south to Berkshire Elementary in West Palm, Florida. What questions do you have for Rose?
No, they're good.
There you go, Berkshire.
Do you guys want to ask one of the questions that some of the girls
No,
had?
you can.
How did you know you wanted to be in this field?
And so the field of nursing, if you would ask my mother, she would tell you that I was born with broken wing syndrome, and I'll tell you about that too. Basically, I've had a love for fixing things my entire life, whether it be a squirrel or a cat or a human or you name it. I like to fix things. So I have always had a heart for making things feel better, if you will.
Berkshire, do you have another question?
Oh, did it mute again? Oh, no.
Nope, you're good.
Do you guys have any more questions?
What was one of the worst injuries you have faced?
Worst injury I've ever had.
Yeah.
I had a nail gun to the head. A patient, he was using a nail gun and his buddy shot him in the head with the nail gun. That was pretty bad, but he survived and is okay.
That's a fair. How much do you get paid?
How much do you get paid?
Hey.
Well, I will share that other slide before about salary. Berkshire, do we have another question?
Any other questions? What are your hours like?
In my role today, it's pretty different. I'm a salaried position, which means I work Monday through Friday, and I kind of it ebb and flows based on when my meetings are for the day. So working in innovation that I do, I kind of come in and work in the lab and do some research projects. So typically like an 8 to 5. When I was working on the floor, I did more of a shift type work where it could be a 7 to 3 p.m. or a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But then I only work 3 days a week. So it kind of was variability there on what kind I preferred.
Awesome. All right, great questions, Berkshire. We'll come back to you in our second round. Let's hop back to CommonPort to see if we do have a question there. I do have one from the chat. So CommonPort, go ahead with your question.
What do y'all do when the baby has just been born?
Wait, what?
What do I do when a what?
What do y'all do when a baby has just been born?
When a baby is born?
So is your question, what do you do when a baby has been born?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, there we got it.
Well, it's usually pretty planned out and we know the babies are coming. So we have special nurses that help with that whole process, but definitely get prepared for it. That's what we do.
That's true. That's true. Any other questions at CommonPort?
Okay, Fantasia, you can. I know what to do. If the baby is just born and the alarm go off, what do you do? Like it's like an emergency. What do you do? If the baby is just coming out, what do you do? If the alarm goes off.
So if there's an emergency birth, what would a nurse in that department do? Now remember, Rose is kind of in the maker health business. So she helps patients. She doesn't necessarily help babies being born, but maybe Rose can answer what happens in an emergency birth.
We do. We are very fortunate here in that we have some of the most state-of-the-art training options that we have. So we actually have a mannequin that's a pregnant woman, and all of our nurses over in our OB department have the training of what to do if mom walks in the front door and man, baby's coming right now. So they do have training on how to deliver a baby. I would say it's pretty rare that that actually happens, but it does happen. So nurses are trained to deliver a baby in the event the doctor's not there.
Awesome. Great questions, CommonPort. So we'll circle back to all of our interactive sites at our next break for questions in just a little bit. We do have a question coming in from our chat space, Rose, and that question is, have any of the inventions or products that you have come up with are any of those being used in other hospitals?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. So one thing that we're fortunate about with our relationship with Maker Health is that we have access to all the other Maker Health areas. So another UnityPoint hospital actually is doing what I was doing before I had the space. So they have that cloud license. So we share projects back and forth. So yeah, we do have projects that are being shared between hospitals, and we kind of, that would be my life goal. If we could all just scream it at the top of our lungs, hey, I did this to help this patient, and we all just share openly, that would be a dream come true.
Awesome. All right, Rose. Well, why don't we hear a little bit more about kind of you? Where did you grow up and what inspired you?
Inspiration. Yeah. So I grew up in Washington, Iowa, which is just south, about an hour from Cedar Rapids, Iowa. So Southern Iowa, small town, you know, not a whole lot going on there, but that's where I grew up, and then moved to Cedar Rapids to go to college. So one thing that you should know about Washington, Iowa is that they have probably the best ice cream ever anywhere. Corner Creamery is, there's only a few stoplights in town, but it's on the corner of one of our main roads through town, and they do have really the best ice cream ever. So you all should visit that.
I get to visit you actually in a couple of weeks, so maybe I'll have to take a jaunt to Washington to the Corner Creamery. Question for you, Rose. What is your favorite ice cream?
Oh, you know what? I like chocolate chip cookie dough. It's something about that cookie dough in there. I love the cookie dough.
I like it. All right. Well, this next portion kind of comes on the heels of what somebody asked you. How did you know you wanted to do what you do?
Yeah, so I did mention that broken wing syndrome, but you know, you guys, I dare you to Google it. It's a thing you can Google. Some people just, you got to fix things. My mom would venture, like I said, to say it was, I used to talk to the squirrels in the tree, or I had to fix the dog, or she'd even tell you later on in life that I had to fix the boyfriends, you know, whatever boyfriend, I had to fix him up and let him go again. But I just had a strong passion for helping. I started as a CNA, you know, back in high school when that was a program that we could do, and working in the local nursing homes. And it was just something I really like to do, is help people. There it is, all the people. So, you know, I think one thing that you can do, even as far as like, if you're not sure what you want to do, maybe something medical, maybe something in innovation, you know, medicine's always changing. There's a lot of innovation there too. See if there's opportunities for you to volunteer in any of your local, either hospitals or nursing homes, things like that. That's kind of how I got started. I started working in the dietary department at one of the nursing homes, and I kind of found my path in that direction. But I also was a pretty avid softball player in high school, so I really like to stay involved in that. And if you know anything about catchers, we're kind of known to have a little bit of a attitude to us. So there was always a lot of fun with that too. So nursing, where did I go and how did I get to where I am today? So we'll talk about all of these a little bit more in depth, but I started in medical surgical nursing, went to ICU nursing, informatics, and then now I'm kind of hanging out in that research and innovation area. So I think before we really dive into the different areas of nursing that I've been in specifically, you kind of have to understand what nursing is. And I'm not going to read this quote to you, but it just kind of stands out to me as one thing, that nursing is so many things and different to many, many people. You know, whether we're promoting something or optimizing health or advocating for patients, you know, there's just many ways to interpret what nursing is, but I thought this definition was really, it stood out to me as far as just encompassing that whole picture, as there's different avenues to be in. Med-surg nursing, also known as medical surgical nursing, which is kind of the melting pot of nursing. You could have anything show up on your floor if you're working on a medical surgical unit. It can be overflow from other units, or it can be kind of the areas listed here on the screen. So the specific unit that I worked on, we had post-surgical patients from lots of different areas. So urology is going to be things with like your bladder, your urinary tract. Maybe we were having surgeries with that. GYN or gynecology. So anything with the woman's reproductive system that's not babies, we cared for those, like hysterectomies. ENT stands for otolaryngology, which is ear to nose and throat. So tonsils or thyroidectomies, removing that little gland here. Maybe we have other problems with our throats. Trauma patients, after they got out of the ICU, this could be car accidents or any kind of trauma you can imagine, they would come to us afterwards. General surgery is things like I need my appendix removed, or my gallbladder needs to come out, or I need to have some kind of a bowel surgery. So we saw those patients as well. And you always had the typical, I just don't feel good. So that was your working with the doctors pretty closely to run a bunch of tests and figure out what was going on. So intensive care nursing. So when I moved over to the intensive care, it was because I really had found that I have a love of the heart. So I like things in a certain process. I grew up in a military family, so I was pretty regimented in the way I grew up. And I found that the heart's kind of like that as well, in that there is a certain way that it should work. And if it doesn't, we have problems. So you learn really, really basically how the blood flow goes throughout the heart and what the lub-dub means. And as a nurse, you know where to place your stethoscope on a patient's chest to hear the certain valves to see if there's a problem there. So that first picture there, you can kind of see that's the how the blood's flowing into the body and then goes out of the body. So you see that it comes in there from the vena cavas and it comes back out. All the blues coming in, red's going out, but there's a specific way. I think that's the point of this slide I wanted to make with you guys, is there is a specific way in which the blood is supposed to go through the heart to be able to adequately feed the rest of your body. And I just really liked the science behind that, knowing that there's a specific process that had to be followed or problems could occur. So next, I would challenge you to say, did you know there's a difference between a heart attack and a cardiac arrest? So there is. So a heart attack is actually a problem with the plumbing in your heart. And that's what this picture is showing you. So you can see those arteries that are running on the outside of your heart. Those are the blood vessels that's actually feeding your heart so it can do its job. And a heart attack is when that plumbing problem happens in there. So that's what a heart attack would be. The alternative then is a cardiac arrest. And that's because you have another pathway in your heart that's actually the electrical pathway, such as if you would wire your house, but a cardiac arrest is when there's a break in that pathway. So if you look at the next picture, I think that we have here, yeah, so that's the example of the electrical system of the heart. So when you hear about younger kids or somebody suddenly falling over, likely it's that they are having a cardiac arrest, that there's a break in somewhere in that electrical pathway of the heart that's caused the heart to quiver, maybe not beat appropriately. So that patient would still need CPR. Same with the heart attack patient, and depending on if they pass out or keel over, however you want to term it, there's steps that you would take to identify if somebody needed CPR. But there's two different things there. So I think in the media, or that you talk about in the world today, cardiac arrest and heart attack are kind of used interchangeably, but they are actually different. So clinical informatics, how did I get into clinical informatics and what is informatics? So informatics is growing every single day. It's continuing to rapidly evolve, but it's really taking clinical science, information science, and nursing science, mixing those together and getting good patient outcomes. So how can I use the knowledge and experience that I gained as a nurse, computers to help me, and then different types of technologies to make sure we're getting good patient outcomes? And I spent the last 7 years working in this field, and I still work in it a little bit today. And I really enjoyed this part because how can we make sure that the computer alerts you if you're about to give the wrong drug, or a monitor that watches your heart rate? How can we send you a remote signal that maybe this patient's heart rate's been climbing over the last few hours? So this world of nursing is, it's newer in the last several years, but it's continuing to grow pretty rapidly. And nursing research, I am maybe a little bit of a rare breed with this, but I like research and the fact that I am able to look back and say, I'm helping patients, and the fact that we are studying what can help keep them safer or improve their care. So two that we're currently involved with right now from the National Institute of Health is Sleep Smart, and we're looking at patients who've had a stroke and if sleep apnea affects their outcomes. The other one is called MOST, and it's a multi-arm optimization of stroke thrombolysis. So basically, is the drug that we give for a patient who comes in with a stroke the best, or could there be something else?
Awesome. That was great, Rose. So now I think it's a great time to go back for questions. So let's head to your town, Rose, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, to Vernon Middle School.
Yeah.
I know that they have some questions out there. So Vernon Middle School, what questions do you have for Rose?
Guys, you wanna go first? Yeah, you can say it.
How many of those like special devices have you made? Like,
If you talk at the computer, I think it'll pick up your volume more. There you go.
how many of those like special devices have you made for like the kids?
Oh,
I
how
made-
many have you designed? How many devices do you think you've designed?
I've designed, oh, see, I'm one of those, I live in the Midwest, so I'm a little too humble. I probably have a hand in a ton of them. But I've probably made 10 or 12 of them in the last 6 months, maybe.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, Vernon Middle School, do we have another question?
We had one more. What was our other one?
Perfect.
Who asked, what is your favorite part of the job, Rose?
The job that I currently do,
Yes.
my favorite part is teaching nurses and other clinical staff skills that they might not have been exposed to. So things like computer-aided design and 3D printing, or coding and building apps, or using a laser cutter. That is a skill that we're not necessarily exposed to in kind of medical training. So giving them those skills to know we can make a difference in the future for the ideas they have is something I love just so much about it.
Excellent. Awesome questions, Vernon Middle. So let's head over to West Palm, Florida. Let's head to Berkshire Elementary. What questions do you have for Rose?
There you go. Go ahead. Do you deal with patients?
Still today, yeah, absolutely. So the gal that you saw earlier, Anna, I work with them in a non-direct way, but if they have a problem or something that we want to prototype to create a solution, yeah, I still get to go up to patient rooms and work with them on projects.
And how many patients do you deal with a day?
Daily, today I've only talked with 2, but I think that changes every single day, depending on where the need's at.
Do you have another question, Berkshire?
How long does the patient stay if they have something serious?
Can you give me an example of what you think is serious?
Like if you have like a.
What if we use Rose's case that she gave us of nail gun to the head?
Okay.
Yeah, that is a unique case in that we made sure he was safe and put him on a helicopter and sent him to a bigger hospital. So a few hours.
Huh.
But somebody with a heart attack, if you come in with a heart attack, say right now, it's about 3:30 p.m. where I'm at. If you came in right now, we would take you to the cath lab, we would fix your heart attack, and you'd go home tomorrow. But that's pretty serious.
Whoa, that's really fast.
Yeah.
Berkshire Elementary, do you have another question?
I do.
Go ahead, Nico.
I have one question that I kind of saw on this actual like TV show, but that's like actually not. This is actually actual one. Have you ever dealt with somebody that's been kind of like been snapped by a snapping turtle, or if not, if that didn't happen, have you ever had to deal with somebody with a heart attack, or have you ever dealt with somebody with memory loss?
So 3 questions. So we already know that Rose has definitely dealt with someone who has had a heart attack. Was the other one someone who was bit by a snapping turtle?
Yeah, I saw this on this like a real life like hospital TV.
Okay. Rose, have you ever dealt with a patient who was bitten by a snapping turtle or an animal?
No, but good story. Growing up, we used to swim in a lot of ponds, and I had a friend got bitten by a snapping turtle. It
There
hurt.
you go. And then the other one was, have you ever dealt with someone who has memory loss?
Absolutely. I actually met my husband while working in an Alzheimer's unit at a nursing home. So Alzheimer's is a memory problem.
That was a great question. Great questions, Berkshire. All right, let's go across town in West Palm Beach, Florida to Coleman Park. Coleman Park, what questions do you have for Rose? Go ahead, Coleman Park.
We're here.
We hear you.
We can't Yes. Okay, we see you here. Okay, go ahead.
When people get stroke and y'all get some medicine, can anything go wrong?
Can you say that real nice and loud? Or can you repeat it closer to the microphone?
When people when y'all get people medicine and the medicine goes wrong, what happened?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, sometimes it's unfortunate. We don't know what patients' allergies are until sometimes it's too late because they've never had the medicine. So we have policies in place that, you know, based on the severity of the reaction, what we would do, whether it be give another medication or maybe call the physician to the room, but we have programs that we follow to make sure that we keep our patients safe.
Excellent. Do we have another question at CommonPort?
Yes. How do you grow in your sleep?
Did you hear?
No, can you repeat that for us?
Repeat the question, Fantasia. Fantasia, pay attention.
I think someone closer to the microphone will have to repeat that for us.
She said, how can you get a stroke in your sleep?
Oh.
Stroke is very similar to a heart attack in that a lot of times it's caused by a blood clot going through those vessels. And so it's just a matter of when that blood clot goes in through your brain, or it could be that you have a vessel that ruptures and then it bleeds. So there's a couple different kinds of stroke. So it doesn't wait for any special time. It just happens when it feels like happening.
All right, great questions, CommonPort. Oh, do we have one more at CommonPort? And again, can somebody closer to the microphone repeat that for us?
He said, how do you have a heart attack?
How do you have a heart attack? And I'll pull that slide back up, Rose.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways. It depends on a heart attack is in that electrical pathway. So that would be the breakage of a line, or it could just be like sometimes your electrolytes in your body. If you have a different in fluid balance, it could cause that pathway to not function right. So there's lots of different reasons. It could be just caused by a genetic reason too. Sometimes we just don't know all of them.
Excellent. Great questions, CommonPort. All right, we do have some questions in our chat space that I do want to get to. So our friends at College Now of Greater Cleveland in Ohio asked, what are some of the daily struggles you go through while working?
Yeah, so I'm going to take that in the spin of working in innovation. So innovation in healthcare is not something that's new, but prototyping and working in that field is a little bit new. So I think that one of the challenges is that I feel like I explain myself a lot because what I do specifically is kind of different and it's not really talked about a whole lot. So maybe I would see that as a challenge, but also just bringing awareness throughout the whole hospital. You know, still it's only about 2 years old, this program. So making sure that everyone in the hospital knows about it. So I make sure to talk to all of the people, but that's definitely a challenge that I see right now.
Excellent. And College Now of Greater Cleveland also asks, and this is a great transition for our wrap up, what advice would you give to someone who wants to go into the field of nursing?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say get out there and do some job shadows. Know that nursing is as a calling. If you saw the salary and you're like, ooh, that's money for me all the time, it's never going away, maybe that's not the right field for you. No, that was a joke. Bad joke, maybe. But I think nursing, doing job shadows is probably the best thing that you can do. Talking to nurses, get out there, maybe talk to some colleges about it. You know, volunteering, hospitals, a lot of hospitals have volunteer programs, getting out there in the nursing homes, just exposing yourself and being kind of open to those experiences, whether it be helping your elderly grandparents or maybe a neighbor, or just getting that kind of care piece. But I would start looking at colleges close to you, seeing if they have any kind of internship programs and also the other facilities in your community.
That is really great advice. And I think any of the students out there, whether you want to go into the medical field or, you know, along with that nursing or into marine science or into engineering, finding those different avenues to getting experience, whether it's volunteering, talking to a family friend that might be a person in a career that you might want to be exposed to. So trying to figure out what's out there and seeing if you can start on your path, because the more that you do the work and you volunteer for a place or experience that, you'll know exactly if that's exactly what you want to do when you grow up.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Everyone had fantastic questions. So great job, everyone connecting out there. Of course, thank you to Rose Hedges, our STEMExplore mentor today, for joining us. Now you can keep in touch with Rose and follow her on social media. So be sure to note those down. And again, thank you, Rose, for spending the time and taking the time to talk with us. I know you have a busy week. Congratulations on the opening tomorrow. We're excited to see how that goes. And of course, thank you to all the sites that have tuned in live today, especially our STEMExplore after school partners in West Palm Beach and in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And of course, thank you to our other site that tuned in from Ohio at College Now of Greater Cleveland. Fantastic questions, everyone. EarthEcho has some really exciting things coming up. Now, our virtual career series of STEMExplore will continue remaining this month and on into next month, into December. We have several live events scheduled for STEMExplore's virtual career connections. So we hope that you can tune in to meet some more wonderful and fantastic dynamic women in STEM careers. So again, if you visit www.earthecho.org. You can see our entire lineup and you can register to participate in these programs. Of course, be sure to stay connected with EarthEcho International on all of our social media channels, as well as that website that we mentioned, earthecho.org. A big thank you again to our fantastic STEMExplore mentor, Rose Hedges, and a huge thank you to United Technologies for their tremendous support of our programming. So on behalf of EarthEcho International, thank you for joining us and keep exploring. Bye-bye, everyone.